Special event this evening. I'd like to also begin by acknowledging the Kaurna people of the traditional owners and custodians of the Adelaide Plains, in which we gather here this evening. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Thank you, Don, for your very, very kind words, and I appreciate that you've been a very long time supporter of my work, and you do walk the talk of equality in the way that you raise your beautiful daughters, so thank you. To all the men in the room this evening and watching in globally that support their daughters, that support their partners, their wives, their sisters, their professional peers and their friends. Thank you for being our allies. We don't do this alone. This conversation cannot be effective with everybody being included in it, and I've been a long time advocate that all genders are responsible for female equality in workplace and in the home place. I'm thrilled to say that this event is going to be broadcast live across YPO this evening globally, and for this I'm extremely grateful. It really gives Oceania a place to fly a very important flag. And as a very progressive and organisation of executives and entrepreneurs, I think we all say it's fair that we strive for diversity and inclusion in the way we want Oceania and YPO to evolve moving forward. Our chapter, I believe, is an absolute shining example of this. When I look around the room, it's very obvious how inclusive we are. And I want to thank YPO for the support that they've provided to make this event global and real this evening for us. Now, we're gathered here for a couple of reasons this evening, but firstly, it's in celebration of the United Nations International Women's Day, and that's on the 8th of March each year. For me, it's a great time for reflection and also looking forward. So I look at the status of women in Australia. I look at where we are with our quest for equality. What I can see particularly recently is that women are actually getting bolder. They're getting gutsier, they're getting louder, they're speaking out and they're pushing back. And there are more women in leadership positions, and decisions that are being made about how this country is moving forward is increasing through a diversity and inclusion lens. We need allies every step of the way. The fact that the previous and current Australians of the Year are both strong, fierce, empowered women, Grace Tame, and my dear friend Taryn Brumfitt, who speak up in support of others and the future, has a massive social effect and massive social change across the country. Those of you that are familiar with my work at Inspiring Rare Birds, and it is a passion project and it is a legacy business that I'm building, you'll know I am a change maker and I work towards the economic equality for all. It's also a time to reflect deeply on women globally, and that's where things take a bit of a tragic turn for the worst. There's still millions of women and girls around the world and in Australia who are struggling with violence, who live in poverty and have a lack of education. And the fact that girls drop out of school when they hit puberty because there's no girls' toilets in their school is a bit of a tragedy. This is 2023, where women, young girls should be able to go to their own toilets when they're menstruating and have privacy. Or that the UN estimates that there's about 12 million girls each year that are married before they turn 16. The issue of equal pay actually, I think, pales into insignificance when I look at statistics like that. So I encourage you all to consider how you, as an individual responsible for the own change in your home and your communities and your businesses, look at how you dedicate yourselves to changing the conditions for some of these poorest and most oppressed women around the world and the organisations that you can support to help them in their very tragic journeys. Now, there's still a lot of change that needs to happen, and this discussion, I hope, will inspire you to make some of those changes. The UN theme for this year is digital, and it's innovation and technology for gender equality. And it sounds like such a complex topic to talk about. And it's an invitation to stop and consider where emerging technologies are taking us and whether they will improve or reduce gender equality. So that's another reason why we're here. We're here to learn. You know, we're YPOers. We have an insatiable appetite for information. We have curiosity and we're lifelong learners. We'll learn from each other and we'll also call on some experts tonight as well. So when it comes to Web 3.0 and everything about that, I'm not ashamed that I need experts like these three wonderful ladies to help me gather the information I need to do more good in the businesses that I'm running. So I'm first going to introduce Amanda. And Amanda Johnston was just 17 when she co-founded one of Australia's first e-commerce stores. She's an absolute pioneer in Web3 and AI and developing tech solutions that enhance personal well-being and emotional connections. In 2014, Amanda co-founded Transhuman. It's a mental health and emotional AI technology company that seeks to enhance human emotion as its relationship with the Internet of Things. It was there that Amanda worked with technology leaders from NASA, Apple and General Electric to invent the world's first file type responsible for sharing of data in the Metaverse. Now, does that make sense to anyone? She's also created a mental health app called The Looper, Be a Looper, and that app is used in over 90 countries, and it focuses on peer support for suicide prevention, and it's the world's first daily mental health check-in app created by Amanda. She's also a part of the Responsible Metaverse Alliance, a delegate of the Metaverse Safety Week, where issues regarding human rights in the metaverse, digital culture, arts, media, child safety and children's rights, medical XR and immersive healthcare, policy, trust and governance are discussed. Like, this is a powerhouse if I've ever met one. On your tables, you will notice a glossary of terms, by the way. So if there's words that I'm talking about this evening that are completely foreign to you or things that you find your children saying to you and you have no idea where they're going with it, that might be a little bit of a cheat sheet for you. Or you can do what I did and use ChatGPT and asked it to give me a list of glossary terms for Web 3.0 and it came up with about 20 in 4 seconds. So. Next we have Jess. Jess Wilson is a repeat tech entrepreneur. She's a co-founder of Tech Waves Ventures and Women Making Waves NFT. And her first business, Stashed, scaled into 130 countries and saw her as a grand finalist version of the Shark Tank kind of apprentice called The Next Unicorn, which aired to 15 million people per episode. Jess has been pinned by Forbes as one of the 1,000 entrepreneurs under 30 to change the world in the next 50 years. No pressure there.
I know. Time's ticking.
And has appeared on the Smart Company's 30 under 30 list 3 times and has toured as an opening keynote speaker for Tim Biley and Tony Robbins. Welcome, Jess.
Thank you for having me.
And she's only like 30.
Just 31 now.
31. And at last, and certainly not least, the powerhouse of Hayley Evans. Hayley is an entrepreneur, she's a CEO, she's an angel investor. She is a hyper-growth-driven advisor and was a finalist in the 2022 CEO Global Magazine Entrepreneur of the Year Award. She's the CEO of Surge Global, the co-founder with Jess of Tech Ventures and Women Making Waves NFT. She sits on the YPO Global Impact Council Board. She's a chapter chair of Sydney Australis. She's a YPO APAC Regional Board member, a chief member, and as a director of the Tavistock Group Tech Investment Portfolio, which she set up the foundations of and scaled teams from 5 to 350 in headcount in 6 years across Singapore, Australia and Sri Lanka. She also has an RTO in the emergency response space and is an active retreat business. So through operating her own companies, I know this lady certainly does walk the talk. Being a hands-on investor and mentor, Hayley is unwavering in her commitment to use what she knows, use her network and her voice to make a safer, more just place for all. Her passion is mentoring young entrepreneurs, empowering through a gender lens investment opportunities, and working with women across male-dominated industries to ensure their success. So it's no secret that I'm incredibly inspired by you. I stand on the shoulders of giants this evening. And thank you so much for being here and being a part of what I think is YPO's first global International Women's Day event, and one being streamed worldwide. So thank you, ladies, for being here. So I want to start with the basics because we need to start at sort of ground level here, and I'm going to help my YPO peers who may be a bit in the dark or a little bit afraid or unexposed to what these technologies actually are out there that your kids are secretly building stuff in their bedrooms with. And what they're doing to create the next generation of businesses. So I also want to acknowledge the many entrepreneurial ventures that are being built globally at the moment, and using these technologies to become faster, to become stronger, to become more profitable, and those that are doing well and been looking at this for some time, where it certainly is an area of pioneers right now. So let's get back to basic. Amanda, we'll start with you. You're a global pioneer in the space of Web 3.0, Metaverse, NFTs and AI. Let's hear about your journey into that space, and what are they? What does this space mean? And why is it a useful space for business today?
Absolutely, thanks for the great question. Thank you everyone for being here. Wonderful to kick off International Women's Day like this. Absolutely great. My journey started in mobile apps. Well, back in the day it actually started in e-commerce and selling things on MySpace, and way back in the day. I'm 37 now, so I started my first business 20 years ago. And as you mentioned, my mentor was Nigel Austin, who founded Cotton On. And I've always looked at ways that technologies can help make solutions. I grew up in Tasmania and lost a lot of friends in succession to mental ill health. And I wondered how we can use the thing that we have in our hands every day to support people to stay more connected. So mobile apps were all the rage then, built that out, did that, scaled that, and then was looking at the next generation of technology and what does that mean. Artificial intelligence was really on the rise, and I wondered how we could use technology to understand the psychophysiological state of their body. Now, I'm neurodiverse, which means the way I communicate is a little bit different to other people. Sometimes I'm overwhelmed with sensory issues, and we actually found a technology by Oliver Rosinski that was a concept, and we acquired that technology. And I'm really good at commercialization, and that's about it. So you say I'm clever. I'm certainly not. I help bring really clever people and bring their ideas to life by getting funding and the best people involved. So we've now got Dr. Chris Mattman, the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer of NASA JPL, helping us build out a file type that houses all the electronic protected health data of the body. So essentially what that will mean is in the metaverse, or in other ways in the future in healthcare and education, we will be able to understand what each other is thinking and feeling in real time without them even having to say a word. So we're going to be giving a voice to the voiceless. We're going to be able to use our avatars to project however we want to feel when it comes to being in the metaverse and characters, and also people that literally cannot speak, be able to help them communicate. My most exciting use case for this is in education and comprehension analysis. So say, for example, everyone here and on the live stream as well is a classroom and I'm the teacher. I can actually understand every single person's level of comprehension about ChatGPT or AI or the metaverse in real time. So I'm very excited about that, and that's been my journey, and it's just been learning along the way. It certainly hasn't been anything that I set out to do. Just we got to take these opportunities as we run with them.
Yeah, we've probably got about 20 years on everyone I know, except for the ladies. Jess, we heard briefly about women making waves, and I've been following your journey for a long time. Tell us about that and what impact it's having, but most importantly, why did you and Hayley decide on NFTs, and then share your journey with us into that world? How did you get there?
Yes, it's definitely a journey, is what it is. And thank you, Jo. Jo's been an absolute, very much so early supporter of everything that we've done. So thank you very much for that. I'll speak quite candidly around how and why we got into this business. So Women Making Waves started from quite a personal story in that I was unfortunately sexually assaulted by a prospect investor, and I decided to seek justice for myself. So I went and I met with well over a dozen lawyers and law firms, and I learnt what the difference between a criminal case was and a civil case and how the whole legal system worked. I then decided to start a lawsuit, which took 18 months, working with lawyers and barristers and Queen's Counsel and psychologists and psychiatrists and everybody you can imagine when it comes to navigating something like that. And I won. And it was the most empowering thing that I've ever done in my entire life. And the thing that when I got to the end of that lawsuit and I looked back, it's not like I could take off my entrepreneur hat, right? Like I was born trained like this. So when I was navigating a lawsuit, I looked at it through the lens of an entrepreneur. So I was seeing defects in the law. I was seeing how women were being suppressed by laws that what I found were established and written into law 120 years ago. 120 years ago, women couldn't vote, they couldn't start a business, we didn't even have TVs. So at the tail end of that lawsuit, I became fascinated with this concept of law reform, which is essentially overturning and changing our women's rights laws. I then got connected through to Nina Fennell, who worked quite closely with Grace Tame and has changed 6 different laws. And we really just put our heads together, and it was this real kind of twinkle in my eye in that I saw what NFTs were doing when it comes to community, in that NFTs, when we started to look at them, were these groups of people who came together, who believed in the same thing, who would rally together, believe in a utility behind something, which is essentially the use case behind something, and be able to raise funds and make change behind it. So I had this initial thought of, okay, what would happen if we launched an NFT collection and used a large portion of those funds to fund women's rights law reform, to essentially bring a new demographic into philanthropy, being millennials and Gen Z. And then Hayley and I met in a very organic way in that we both live in the same building. We got connected through our real estate agent. He was just like, it was in lockdown when you could have a single buddy, and we became each other's single buddy, and we didn't talk about business for 4 months. I had no idea what she did. She had no idea what I did. And at the end of that 4 months, we decided to just really jump into figuring out this end goal of how can we fund and bring a new demographic into law reform, and how can we use tech and Web3 to do that. And just to touch on one of the things that we did, and I'm sure we'll get into more detail around the weeds around it, we really created this essentially user journey so that people who bought into this collection didn't need to go and open a crypto wallet and buy Ethereum and go through all those steps. We co-created this link where people could buy an NFT with 2-3 clicks. So it's been this journey, very much so stemmed from a personal journey, co-created with Hayley and myself, and I'm incredibly proud of the partners that we now work with.
It's an amazing journey, Jess. And the fact that you've met each other in such an uncanny way, and you're so aligned with each other. Hayley, one of the positives of NFT and blockchain is that it creates autonomy. You don't need third-party promotion, acceptance, or approval to create a transaction. How do you think this tech will enable greater economic participation for women?
Yeah, and I think it's...
Complex question.
Yeah, thanks, Jo. I wanted to tell the story.
Let's hear your story.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Look, I think there's multiple layers, and just to let you all exhale as well, I was that person that needed the cheat sheet 18 years ago. It was something that I was deeply committed to creating an opportunity in which we could bring a younger demographic to philanthropy and solve problems for charities, which was really creating reoccurring and sustaining revenue streams so that if they could actually concentrate on what they needed to do and not on fundraising, what does that mean for impact? What does that mean for network effect? And so I think when Jess came up with this, fantastic idea, I was like, great, what the? And so you talk about a journey, and it's been an extraordinary journey. And what I love about, and I'll certainly answer your question, but what I love about this space is, as we've seen the transition, and in its most simplistic, we see Web 2, which is all about the user, and socials and alike. And where I think Web 3 is really, really interesting, and that is around community. And Web 3 is really disrupting that dynamic, and it's really about engaging and empowering a community to come together and cause change. And whether that be for good or bad is completely up to your use case, of course. But where I really see it with regards to gender equality is that peer-to-peer transaction and the fact around the decentralised state. It's also allowing us to see discrepancies in data and really bring to light such inequalities so that we can address them. And I think for me, I'm a complete data geek. You know, I really believe that we have to make decisions based on data and not on emotion. You know, we see statistics that tell us that boards perform better with females on it because of diversity of thought, not just diversity of a sex or a gender. And I think that the transparency across data in Web3 is going to allow us to see those inequalities and address them in a more powerful way. I think the other thing is very much around peer-to-peer transaction. So taking out that intermediary and actually empowering people to have conversations and really connect with people that they feel morally aligned with, that they want to support, and come together to solve problems and have a voice. And that was one of the things that I was so profoundly related to, and Jess and I just clicked on immediately was, you know, I came back to Australia for 3 weeks when COVID hit, and it's been 3 years, and I was on the last flight back from the US, and one of the things that I really became related to was, how do I use my privilege? How do I use my voice, my network, my connections, and understanding tech and the evolution of tech? How can I use that for good? And then this one pops up. And, you know, it's such a privilege to be partnered with a woman who not only is so incredibly talented, but also has the courage to do what she did. And I think entrepreneurship is such, you know, I think about entrepreneurship as just being human and resilient, and every time you get knocked down, you get up again. And I would love to say that it's more strategic than that, but I think that's it. And to have her courage in our business is extraordinary.
Likewise. I think we fit very well, Hayley and I, when it comes to skill sets as well. And we're just so tied to this vision around how we can utilise tech to make impact in the real world. So I think it's just definitely been a journey, but a exhilarating one so far.
And I've been at the beginning of this journey with the ladies, and I'm a very early adopter and believer of what they do, because I can see that there'll be people that don't really understand it yet, but I think down the track the picture will become very, very clear as to why you've started what you have. So I think I get it. No, I really do.
You're one of our first buyers, Jo.
And my parents still don't know what I do. So
Amanda, when you think of the metaverse and AI, and you know, when I do, I imagine a virtual room full of young people, an entirely new space that a lot of parents haven't been able to go yet or don't know how to get there. What exactly is it?
I love that question. That's really great. And I think to piggyback off what you guys said about what you're doing, my first foray sort of into this space was on Clubhouse. Once again, during the pandemic, I got stuck in Tassie. Couldn't get in, couldn't get out. And for those people listening, Tasmania is a small island on the bottom of Australia, and you literally couldn't get in and couldn't get out, and there was no COVID there. So I went on an app called Clubhouse, which was a social audio app. Jess, I think you came to a few of our shows, and we built a community of 300,000 people in a year. And this was really when NFTs and the metaverse was really starting to accelerate again. So we auctioned off Edward Snowden's NFT for the Freedom of Press Foundation for $5.5 million.
Wow.
That NFT then sold a couple of weeks later for $7.5 million. Now, the Freedom of Press Foundation got a royalty from that and will every single time it sells. So when we're talking about the utility of social impact, that's sort of a really great case study. Another one I've seen is a 12-year-old called Nyla, a black girl from the US who actually created her own NFT collection. She sold over $1 million worth, and then Time put her as their entrepreneur in residence, which is really cool. So all you need is an internet connection and a computer that kind of works. So there's just so much opportunity. It doesn't matter your age, and it certainly doesn't matter of your gender. So with that, with social impact and opportunities and age and location and decentralization, what's really exciting about the metaverse is now we've got these tokens and NFTs, which are things that our avatars can wear, or sometimes tokens that we have in our digital wallets. Now, if I hold up a Mount Franklin water, and I think Mount Franklin's from Tasmania, so this is a great case study. Let's just pretend this is an energy drink. I'm not going to say any particular energy drink. And you hold that up and I'm drinking it. Now I'm either crazy because it's 9 p.m. at night, or I'm a really exciting daredevil type of person. And that's a similar utility with NFTs and wearing these digital assets or having digital tokens in the metaverse. It's your badge of honor that belongs to you, that no one can take away from you, that says, hey, this is me and that's what I stand for. Now, if that's a Bored Ape and a Bored Ape community, or if that's a Women Making Waves NFT, or if that's a utility for the Freedom of Press Foundation, or like Nadia from Pussy Riot actually raised, it was over $5 million in 24 hours to send to Ukraine, when they couldn't get money in or out of the country. There's so many great case studies, I think, in that social impact space. So the metaverse is, yes, it's like a gamified place where we can explore, and we're going to see more of that in the future. But the metaverse already exists when we hold up Snapchat and do selfies and have cat ears coming out of our head. We're already stepping into AR and VR and the metaverse and these gamified experiences. But this is where NFTs and Web3 is really taking it to the next level, where we have ownership of the assets that we hold in that space. And that's what I'm really excited for.
I think when we talked originally too, you told me, this is a great case study if you can share it, about Paris Hilton. You know, what a genius that woman is.
Absolutely.
Share what she's doing in the
Yeah,
metaverse.
absolutely. So there's a lot of people like Paris Hilton who are actually putting out their own digital games. They're going into Sandbox. Travis Scott did a concert. If you know of Travis Scott, he's an artist, and they're actually performing in these spaces. And there are millions of people turning up to these virtual events. So it's definitely somewhere that's happening. There's things happening in these spaces. And, you know, I'm sure we could get a bit of an idea, and the people in the audience would know the numbers of Fortune 500 companies that are already entering into the metaverse. And I know you guys are actually aligning with some of those. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say who, I'm not sure if I even know, but it's really exciting times for brands, for people, for artists, whoever you are. If you don't have a brand that you think would be cool in the metaverse, you can go and sponsor a virtual sports event. You can sponsor a virtual gallery. You can be like Time and take on Nyla, a 12-year-old entrepreneur in residence, to create long necky ladies. And I think they actually featured a bunch of women as well. They had like Princess Diana long necky ladies. And anyway, we won't get too caught up with the names of some of the funny NFTs, but it's just such a great space, and everyone's moving into that space. It is a slow emergence, but if you're not starting to make those pathways now, you're going to get left behind.
Interesting. Hayley, how do you see Web 3.0 helping businesses to scale into new markets? I mean, your background, your expertise is in scaling. And for the business owners here, how do we use this technology to access new audiences, to look at new customer bases, to look at, you know, how we're going to get products to a different market? Like what is it? How do you join the dots on that?
Absolutely, and it's the perfect segue, so thank you for that, Amanda. I think it's about being future-proof. And I think to stay relevant, we have to think about, you know, it doesn't matter what application. We're talking about a utility function, right? So whether it be Web 2, Web 3, Metaverse, AI, or whatever else. But it's all about how do we look at our businesses and become future-proof? How do we stay relevant? And what that means for today's customer, how they consume data, how they consume your product, how they relate to your product. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you're selling. At the end of the day, people want to feel part of a community. They want to buy into something that they believe in or that solves a problem. And so we're really selling a feeling. And where I think, to Amanda's point, is it doesn't matter what industry. I mean, we're seeing big plays in, you know, I think there's a lovely gentleman, Brendan, in real estate. We're seeing big plays in real estate with Web3, in the fintech and financial services. But I think fundamentally, when we think about customer bases and scale, how do you talk to the emerging customer? How do we talk to a younger demographic? And one of the things that Jess and I really wanted to unlock was, if we want to bring a younger demographic to philanthropy, if we want to stay relevant, if we want to create community that is actually not about what we want, it's about what our community wants, how do we talk to them? And we couldn't do anything but be in Web3 and technology, because to Amanda's point, if you're not already on that journey, and it doesn't mean you have to go and, you know, transform your businesses today. It's really about thinking, who your customer is, and not only who they are, but who are you employing. If we're looking at future leaders, the future leaders who are going to rule countries, rule massive businesses, are the people that are growing up in this space. So how do we relate to them and shortcut that journey and adoption into our businesses? And I think the other thing is one of the pivots that Jess and I made, again, by understanding and hearing our customers, we started with a very B2C model where you could buy into our membership, you would buy an NFT, and that would unlock a whole heap of member benefits as well as a digital education platform. And I'm incredibly passionate about creating equal opportunity to education. And from that, we really had so many corporates coming to us and saying, how do we lean in? You know, we know sexual harassment, sexual assault, and policies may not be good enough in our business. How do we make sure that we're an attractive employer and make sure that we've got this stamped out in our business? And so, yeah, we created something called the Swirl Club, which is a corporate membership, and it allows organisations to tap into incredible, like we've just had the most mind-blowing partners come on, you know. The Shopper Foundation is our wellness partner. We have legal partners. We have, I think, every 10 minutes or so, a different VC put one of our pledge campaigns across LinkedIn. So many organisations wanting to stand for something and lean in, and not only just lean into the harassment and gender side, but also how do we talk in technology and how do we stay relevant?
And I think that's really the root of the challenge, is creating that community, having them aware of the commercial aspects of this new place, but people feeling safe at the same time. And I love that you sort of both sort of approach the fact that these tools are used to measure how people feel.
And I think the wonderful thing about community-led growth strategies, and that's really what Web3 is you actually don't have to guess what your customer wants anymore, because they will tell you.
Well, they're part of it.
And they're part of creating
Inception,
it.
yeah.
So do you think I haven't scripted this question, but is there any industry that you think won't be touched by this in the future?
What a great question.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
I think, can I jump into that? I think it's a different way of even doing business is what I've noticed very tactically after running a Web 2 and also a Web 3 business. Web 2 companies are very much so, you develop your product or service, you market it and you have customers. Whereas in Web 3, it's you develop, whether it's an NFT collection or whatever it might be, and you build a community and these people become your advocates. So it's a very different process, it's a very different feeling, and it's a very different level of involvement from your community. I had this fascinating conversation with a incredible product guy who worked for Uber, he worked for Apple, and I think he worked for Google. And the way that he explained it to me when I was first getting into it, he said, the whole kind of unique ownership and the community mentality when it comes to these Web3 businesses is the same mindset as though if with Uber, everybody had options or they had shares or they had some sort of ownership. Imagine what that would have done for that organisation if everybody's incentivized from the bottom up. So I think the main difference I've seen personally is the way that you engage your community to be full involved in your strategy and your promotion and your engagement is on a completely different level to Web 2. And I think for businesses looking at a Web3 strategy, that's something that is incredibly exciting to me, and I'm sure all of us, because your customers are no longer just your customers who might be your repeat customers or whatever it might be. They are invested and and they want to see the success of this. And I think that's a real shift in mindset around how we tackle business with Web 2 and also Web 3.
So that goes back to something I think that you were saying, Hayley, about understanding this next generation of business leaders, entrepreneurs, and power makers in the future. This young generation, our children and our grandchildren, and understanding what they're going to do in the future. We have to be in this space.
Yeah, and absolutely creating a platform for them to springboard off. If we want to look at big issues like gender equality, we want to. For the incredible leaders, and it's not just men versus women, this is about creating education and systems and alike for us to create a platform to better and better create society moving forward. And I think we have to. We
It's a
owe it to the people.
responsibility.
Yeah, we owe it to the incredible people that have come before us and all of those that will come after us.
Yes, certainly.
And I think just to answer your other question, and I think Jess did a beautiful job of it. I think to answer the question with regards to any industry, I don't think that there's going to be any industry that's not.
That's my feeling.
I think the adoption will be very staggered and different, which will be very, very interesting to watch.
And Joe, just on that as well, really sort of leveraging what you're both saying, a great example would be tonight we could write a song that goes for 1.5 minutes called YPO Women Rule, Let's Get Amongst It, and get Snoop Dogg to feature on it. And then we could give everyone in this room a token or a POAP, or we could actually give them fractionalised shares in that song. And everyone who's watching on the computer as well, it doesn't have to be people here in the room, there's many ways to distribute. And then every time that song plays, you all earn royalties off that. So not only is that great because you all earn royalties, guess what's going to happen? You're all going to play the song. You're all going to ring up the radio station, say, hey, play our song. Hey, Snoop, we want you to perform it at your show. You're actually going to play it. You're going to get your friends to play it. You're going to vote for it on the charts. And that's what you're talking about with the community buy-in. So I just want to give a really simple example of how an industry that seems so untouchable are now, we've partnered with Universal Music. So using that as an example, this is actually what's happening. I want everyone to go and Google what Spotify is doing, moving into Web3. But that's just a really sort of on the ground example. So if you think of any category and you break it up like fractionalizing a song, and you can all push that song to make the top of the charts, you're incentivized to do it.
Yeah.
And it disrupts the power play.
Totally.
That's what will even the playing field.
And then your children's children can own those tokens and the fractions in the future. They don't just disappear when you lose a bit of paper or Scooter Braun comes and buys up your catalogue. It's you actually own that and you decide where they go. It's a really exciting time.
It is. I mean, for entrepreneurs particularly, I mean, the limit is limitless.
Yeah.
of
Love Scooter Braun, by the way.
and please check under your chairs. You all now have Snoop Dogg.
Oh yeah, we're actually recording a rap live tonight. If anyone can remix this conversation.
Let's go back to you, Jess. Let's talk more about Women Making Waves.
Yes.
And you're on the springboard now. You've just jumped off with Hayley, which is a phenomenal partnership. Let's talk about what you hope to achieve with this business and what have you done so far?
Yep.
How did you do it? And what do you see as your vision for the future?
I love it. So I'd love to answer this quite tactically to begin with and then talk around our vision. So when we develop an NFT collection, there's more or less 3 different layers to it. There's the art, the tech, and the utility. And the art is what you probably see with these monkeys on a JPEG and people are like, what is this? I don't understand, right? But the way you actually build out the art of an NFT collection is slightly different to what you'd expect. You don't brief an artist to make 1,000 different items. You brief them to make various different traits and sub-traits. And that might be like the hair, the eyes, the outfit of one image. You take all those traits, you put it through an algorithm and it spits out X amount of unique items which become your NFTs. So that's how the art works. The tech is conversations around, okay, so what blockchain are we doing this on? Is this something that sits on Ethereum? Is this Polygon? What smart contracts are we having? Is this an ERC 721, 721A? Or is this something that we want to really address a market which isn't necessarily already into NFTs? And if that's the case, is this something that we want to partner with companies like Paper XYZ, like Hayley and I did, to create the ability to purchase with credit cards? So there's decisions around the tech piece. And then the last, which is utility, and that's in my mind the most important part of a NFT collection and is the most important part to our business, because the utility is essentially, you've got your NFT, which is the front-facing piece of art and the tech that sits behind it and those decisions that you made on the tech. And the utility is more or less what it unlocks. So this NFT, what do you get access to? So for example, with us, Swell Club, by buying an NFT, is it's access to co-hosted events with some of the biggest corporates in the world. It's access to a digital platform. It's access to the NFT itself. It's access to each time we change a different law, we airdrop a copy of that legislation to our owners. So the utility itself unlocks what the business offers to you as more or less a digital membership. So for us, when it comes to the vision of the business, we want to really use this technology to scale out a new demographic who believe in what we believe in when it comes to women's rights law reform. and partner with incredible law reform experts who we've partnered with. For example, in the US, we've partnered with a company called Equal Rights Advocates. Here in Australia, it's Nina Fennell, and our law reform advocates have changed accumulatively 44 plus laws since they've been doing this. So incredible work. And we've had a really unique win with one of our law reform experts, Nina Fennell, the last couple of months. And that was with her, because she could focus on what she's good at, which is the whole premise of this business, is to take away that headache to people who know what they're doing when it comes to law reform so they can focus on what they're doing. Nina was able to unlock an amount of funding through the government to really scale out trauma-informed courts to the tune of $62 million.
Wow.
So it really speaks to that whole notion around why we exist is let's look at how we can fund and scale women's rights law reform and use tech to be able to do it.
Wow. Like, seriously, wow. And you only just got off the ground.
4 or 5 months ago, I think we launched publicly, yeah, but we've been behind the scenes on that for quite a...
So how does one go about buying your NFTs? How does one go about buying an NFT for women making waves?
Well, I'm glad you've asked, Joe. So for us, there's a couple of ways. The easiest way is to jump onto our website, and there's a button in the corner which says mint/buy. Don't be intimidated by the word mint. All that means is buy. And we've made it very simple in that you can buy an NFT by entering your email address and your credit card in 2-3 clicks. We've priced it at $250 per NFT, and that's how people can uniquely get involved. Then we've launched Swell Club, which is an offering for corporates to essentially unlock all of that, but on a much larger scale for their organisations.
So do you think because of the way you're using this technology, change and progression will happen at a faster pace as well?
I think we've proven that in the last 2 months with the work that Nina was able to do, because that is a huge amount of change when it comes to, if we look at it from an impact scale. So I think definitely, and I think it's something that we speak on NFTs, not from a really technical point. We don't like run around saying we're an NFT business. We're a digital membership business, which offers this certain solution to corporates, and we're a law reform tech company. So I think in the last couple of months, we've proven that it will run really quickly because we've seen really quick wins. And it's something that we see ourselves doing for a very long amount of time and having a solution which I think will solve a lot of issues for a lot of corporates and also fund a lot of laws to be changed.
I think also because your passion is so incredibly obvious, both of you, and people want solutions, don't they? They want you to do the work, but be involved.
And I tell you what they want that we've learned, and Hayley and I were uniquely aware of this from the beginning. We ran a campaign called the I Took the Pledge campaign, which Joe spearheaded and was the person who led that with us alongside Blackbird and Airtree. And it was this campaign where we engaged VCs to essentially voice their support and buy an NFT. But people want quick solutions, and what we found for that specific target market is they didn't want to go and set up a crypto wallet, buy Ethereum, buy an NFT, understand what gas prices are. Exactly. So that's why we felt that we needed to build out this link where people could buy with a credit card, 2 clicks, 3 clicks, easy done, because we knew that our market now, the people we wanted to sell to and bring into our community were time poor. So people expect you to innovate around it.
Yeah, and then just for a bit of context there, last year alone, there was 0.7% of all VC funding was awarded to women-led businesses in Australia. So that's sort of why the VCs were so eager to adopt this idea. Amanda, sorry.
I was just going to say, and I think the other thing that we really saw with business was people are really, really looking for the right education to put into their businesses and access to education. And there are incredible organisations out there that talk about workplace harassment, how to deal with it, bystander training and the like. But to be able to unlock access to that and audit policies and make sure that they're doing the best that they can do for their organisations was huge.
Yes, yeah. It's just endless possibility. Amanda, we'll finish with you and then we're going to open the floor to questions. Tell us about how you've been able to harness the power of emerging technologies for your positive social good.
Yeah, I mean, we've all given a few case studies tonight. I think we're all really excited about some of the ones we've seen. But when we think about brands going into the Metaverse, for example, we're starting to see people open digital mental health clinics where you can go in as an avatar. You don't have to go in as a young person or a girl or a boy. We're just seeing so many things available.
So it can be anonymous.
Yeah, absolutely anonymous. People using different identities to represent themselves in virtual places, and just the connectedness that we're seeing and the scaling. So thank you for the work that you're doing to bring in new types of people into the space. We're seeing media companies be reinvented. We're seeing digital companies being reinvented, supply chains being exposed. So, you know, cashmere that's being made, now you can actually see where it's going from end to end. Products that you can verify their authenticity. And then just talking once again about that long-term transaction, you're an architect, you are part of building a house, and you put a specific marble inside that house. That marble can have an NFT, so every time you sell that house, there is a digital ledger of that, and
So
possibly a royalty that goes right back to the stonemason who mined it.
Wow. Wow.
It's an exciting
got your
time.
head
There's
around
so
it.
many
Yeah.
use cases.
I just want to say, ladies, thank you so much for your wisdom. I think over the last few months in particular, Jess, you've been like a reverse mentor for me in this space. I've learned a lot from you, and following your journey is just such a joy. Our live stream is going to finish in a couple of minutes or a minute, and we're going to open the floor up for questions. While we're asking questions, there is no live streaming, so we can hold Chatham House rules and keep the conversation to this room. So obviously there's no silly questions when it comes to this topic. So if we can just put our hands together and thank Kaylee, Amanda and Jess for what they've done. And we might close off our live